to. He'll get his ass kicked. Like, literally.
And we're live.
All right.
Hello to all you
good whenever you are.
Podcast land and hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 108 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one podcast in Canada. We're recording on Monday, November 27th, 2017.
Oh my God. Have some more whiskey, Andrew.
Gavin?
I think he froze.
I think Gavin froze.
Technical difficulties.
There's going to be a lot of people freezing in Ontario this winter. I tell you that.
All right, I'm just going to do the intro again because I did a bad read anyway.
I got it third time's the charm. This is going to be awesome.
One more time, and we're just going to put Gavin at the bottom and see if he gets back on by then.
Gavin hates the bottom. You know that.
Yeah, it's time to bance against Gavin. Hey, Gavin, we're bancing against you. This is for when you listen to the recording in the future.
Allegedly.
Because you're frozen on the thing. Oh, and you're gone. And you're gone. Rolled out. He said, I don't need this. His power probably got shut off or something, you know. For the raids are starting to happen on all the gun owners and all the people that broke the hate speech code or whatever you called it, you know. Just for saying like he doesn't like liberals.
I'm a liberal.
All right. Let's try this again.
And I have a closet full of... Never mind.
Once more from the top.
All right, before you do that, but before we go get back on the rails here, how do we not have the article saying how we are treating ISIS fighters with poetry?
Oh, feel free to add that to the notes. I'd like to read it, but feel free to add that to the notes.
I love poetry.
I thought that was our way of getting back at the cruel and unusual punishment that they administered to some of our people. Fair is fair, after all, right?
Yeah, I'll add to the 60 after the 60 people. All right, go ahead. Start the podcast.
Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 108 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one podcast in Canada. We're recording on Monday, November 27th, 2017.
Gavin, you froze again.
No, you're at the top of the show notes.
Gavin loves the bottom.
Oh, what happened? Oh, fuck. I was looking at the show notes.
Well, there you go.
I'm already hunter and sports shooter in rural southern Ontario.
I'm Matt, American, who takes the phrase liberty or death seriously. I'm a hunter, a family man, and I'm still searching for my elusive white privilege. Haven't found it yet, but I'm looking.
Maybe you'll find it with the Sasquatch.
Maybe. Probably. He's hiding it.
I'm Tim, sports shooter and father of three, and the owner and operator of Tim's Good T-shirts. They're quite good. I'm also the descendant of beer-drinking immigrants.
I believe you mean burr-drinking immigrants based on your show notes there, Tim.
Well, it is. It is almost December.
Yeah. I'm Gavin, business owner, gun enthusiast, hunter, atheist, and host of the Greater Toronto Area chapter of the Tactical Beard Owners Club.
As always, my name is Andrew. I'm your host. I'm a recovering libertarian, a competitive shooter, and a firearms instructor at Ragnarok Tactical.
Then we'd love to hear your feedback about the show, so please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. The edited version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes, and if you leave a 5-star iTunes review, we'd really love that. And in your comments, put down something you'd like me to drink for an episode. But no, Tommy, I am not drinking rubbing alcohol. That is not good for you.
Oh, my God.
You can also check the podcast out on Facebook, facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast, or on Instagram, instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast. Mostly we put up pictures letting you know the show's about to go live.
We need your help. To support the show, visit www.patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get the uncensored audio version of the show for just $1 per episode, and the more you pledge, the better the rewards are.
Side note, before we go into what are we drinking, seriously consider looking at Patreon. I'm considering putting content behind the paywall. So Patreon listeners will get that content first before it becomes available to the public. The regular show will still be on Monday nights and all that good stuff, and the edited version will still come out Tuesday or Wednesday or the following week, depending on my work schedule. But I'm playing with the idea of putting some stuff behind the paywall, so look into the Patreon, even if it's just to find out where the Patreon is so you can find that stuff if it shows up.
Walls are so hot right now.
Yeah, man.
It's gonna be a big, beautiful paywall.
Making podcasts great again.
Hell yeah.
And the listeners will pay for it.
Yes, they will. That's the plan, anyways.
I feel like I pay for it every Monday and most Tuesdays.
Yeah, Tuesday mornings can be a little rough. I'm not gonna lie.
I'll quit your bitching.
All right, let's do what are we drinking? Aaron, what are we drinking is being brought to us by Arrowhead Coffee. Arrowhead Coffee is owned and operated by Canadian Armed Forces veterans. They love our country. The true North is strong and free. Their family and friends. Join Arrowhead Coffee on their hunt for the perfect brew to raise morale and bring that feeling of home to you, no matter where you are. A portion of all profits helps Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans, and their families. Marty, what are you
A
drinking?
quick little side note: we picked up some Arrowhead coffee at the range the other day. So I'm not a coffee guy, but my lovely girlfriend Angela is. So we'll let you know how that is when we get a chance to try it, or she does. So, yeah, buy your coffee, specifically Arrowhead.
Yeah. Buy some Arrowhead Coffee. Let them know we sent you.
Yeah.
Spicebox, whiskey, and Coke Zero.
I'm glad the delay is effective today.
Good thing it isn't a cue, or I mean a play, because like there'd be so much improv going on. Anyway.
Gavin, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Jack Daniels and Cherry Coke Zero.
So, Tim, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking 40 Creek Copper Pot Reserve and Reverse Osmosis water.
Matt, what are you drinking in America?
I am drinking like 25-ounce like double tall boys of Busch Ice, which is like Canadian strength beer, like 6%, and also like natural ice and all kinds of random beers. This was like $1.49.
Fuck you.
Jeez. Even after you change that to Canuck bucks, that's still only like $2.25.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Let me check the
It's
tables.
a very reasonably priced tall boy.
Yeah, man.
I'm drinking 40 Creek
even call that
and
a boy,
Reverse
though?
Osmosis ice cubes.
Nice. I didn't plan ahead. I don't have my reverse osmosis ice cubes.
Of pure essence. Remember, they're after your manly essence.
So how many ounces is that beer, Matt?
25 ounces, which is 2 cans, basically. 2 12-ounce cans, 2 regular-sized cans, all in one.
That's about the size of a bottle of wine.
Yeah, about.
That's pretty good.
And it's 6%, so the Busch Ice is like, this is like a real drinkable beer.
Yeah.
It's not like piss.
Yeah, it's not too strong. It's not too weak.
I don't know why.
Speaking
I don't know
of
why
piss.
it's not open yet, though. I'm like waiting for a beer crack because, like, from what I've heard, podcasts that have like a traditional beer crack tend to get the ladies wet. So I kept waiting for it, and then I forgot that we don't do that here.
No, we just go straight.
No, we just
into
show up
drinking.
drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've been
not-
drinking since work, but
Nice.
totally ruined the segue because we were talking about piss. I wanted to bring up listener feedback. Someone on YouTube named Trevor Furlot says Gavin is drinking clown pee. And clown pee.
To be fair, I'm surprised he can even say that word without pissing himself.
Yeah. Did he take his Xanax
awesome.
before coming up with that pun?
I do not
Don't
know.
worry, Trevor.
Gavin, do you want to recap some videos that we recently released on the YouTubes?
Yeah, I guess the lovely folks at Matador Arms and who've been on the show, and we've had the pleasure of meeting down at SHOT Show, and they've been amazing sponsors for us in some of our charity events. They've challenged Canadian Patriot Podcast, Project Maple Seed, Slamfire Radio. You're going to lose, Trevor. And New Shooter Canada and Highlander Tactical to send in some videos of their new 1022 mag rotor and paddle style express mag release, which gives you like a longer, so easier to push release for your mag. So we've all been challenged with creating some videos and then submitting them, and then they get to pick their favorite. And then so when we win, we'll get $100 Matador Arms gift certificate to give away to one lucky listener. But Andrew and I, 2 weeks ago now? A week ago? I don't know.
Yeah,
a little while ago.
Last weekend.
Was it last? Man, that seems like so long ago already. Went out to the gun club and cut some video of us getting all tactical geared out, and then opening up a case, and there's this sweet pink 1022, which for those of you that watch The Punisher, he also referenced the pink Ruger in that. So I think he was talking about us because we're internet famous.
Castle now.
But then we demoed the product and everything, and showed how fast you can shoot 30 rounds legally with these mag rotors and the extended mag release. So a fun day. Some funny videos came out of it. Check them out on the YouTubes. Go visit Matador Arms. Tell them that our video is the best video, because then we get to win the prize and then give it away to one of you, our lucky listeners. But yeah, good times.
Yeah, do it, man. Just speaking as somebody else that like attempts to do a podcast when we can, me and Tyler, y'all know him. Like, doing video content takes time and effort. So like, show these guys some props and give them a vote, because they take time out of their day to do this. I mean, it's fun as hell to shoot, but it's fun shit. It's good shit. And it's for a good cause. So make sure to show some love here and vote them up, man.
Yeah, and for Trevor, whoever gave us a thumbs down, I'm very disappointed.
Yeah.
Trevor, I'm going to mail you. You better hope I never find out your address, because I'm going to mail you so many like clown dildos and fucking clown dolls and clown punching bags and stuff, all kinds of shit.
Oh man, I just came up with the greatest stage ever for when we do the charity shoot next, all because of those inflatable clowns. Oh man, it's going to be so good.
Yeah. That would be a beautiful thing to witness. I don't have the YouTube chat up, so I don't know if Trevor decides to talk shit to me, but feelings mutual, pal. Okay.
Let's get into the news.
Yeah.
I think I have a button for that, don't I? All right, first one, we have the affordable housing from the Liberal government. Yeah. Laughter ensues. Do we have a laugh track yet? No, that's the applause track. I don't have a laugh track. We need to get that.
Do you use your drops like when you're getting intimate with your wife?
That's the laugh track, right?
Yeah, you just can't hear us laughing over it.
Well, you got to put your comms headset on so you can hear everybody else in the rotary aircraft.
I'd be laughing if I heard, the screams of liberal she-men falling from the, cargo doors to their, future. I forgot that you guys are in Canada, and I think some of the stuff is illegal to say, so I won't say it all the way. I'll imply it, but I'm also across the border, so like,
we actually have an article later on in the show that is a liberal screaming. So we'll get to that.
Sounds good.
Probably sure, more than one.
Yeah, pretty sure every article about them is just like, autistic screeching, but.
All right. So the first set of articles that we've got is the affordable housing. So last week, the federal Liberal government announced a decade plan to release something to the tune of $40 billion in funding for affordable housing. Of course, they're not going to be releasing it within the next 2 years because
No,
the
why
money
would
won't be
they do
available
that?
until after the next election. But, okay, I shouldn't say that. That's unfair. Some of the funding becomes available in April of 2018, but the majority of it won't be available until 2021. And most of this magic $40 billion isn't actually federal funding. The feds are expecting the provinces to kick funding in to hit that target. Naturally, the NDP, so for everybody out there in podcast land, the NDP is our most communist left-leaning political party.
I don't even know I'd say that anymore.
Of the big three, who is more left-leaning than the NDP?
I'm almost questioning if the Liberals have jumped them.
It's entirely possible. The NDP is calling the plan timid, which I find vastly entertaining.
I mean, this is Liberals spending somebody else's money to an extreme.
Yeah, but the NDP
this is the Liberals spending somebody else spending somebody else's money.
Yeah, but the NDP are saying you're not spending enough of someone else's money. And the guy who's saying that, his name is Singh. That's a verb. It's a verb. Like, come on.
I think this is pretty funny. So we're looking at something on the order of 300,000 new low-income. Or no, I'm sorry, that's not right. It's support for approximately 300,000 low-income households. This funding when it comes into effect.
This is the inception.
It's not a particularly good number. Yeah, I don't really understand how they're going to be able to afford this, but don't worry, it gets worse. As part of their statement, sorry, I got distracted. As part of their statement, the Liberals have planned to introduce legislation making housing a fundamental right. So now we're going to have everyone have somewhere to live in Canada, because without the government, who would build the houses?
So what isn't a right these days?
That's the question I have. Like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. So now housing is a fundamental
I'll
right.
almost concede that housing is a right as soon as you get rid of property taxes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but since you can't own property, really. If you owned it, you wouldn't have to be paying for it, right?
This is
We
a
are
typical
effectively
liberal thing,
tenants.
Yeah, but this is a typical liberal thing where they're demanding an equal outcome, not an equal.
But that's what equality is, right?
No, it isn't.
No, but like everybody getting the same thing when we're done, that's equal, right? Doesn't matter how much time, effort, work we put into it. It's that we all get the same thing at the end.
Not if you're white.
Well, anything less than equity is racism.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
Except if you're white, then the rules are just completely different and inconsistent. But what my thing is, like, seriously, when you think about it, and that's a good point about the property tax situation, really, like, people have to look at the other side of the coin here. They might say, oh, housing is right. And if you were dim-witted and didn't see through all the nonsense, you'd say, oh, that sounds good. Everybody should get housing. Everybody gets a roof over their head. We should provide for everybody. But what they're really doing by enacting this type of, long-term sort of financial budgetary thing and these whatever laws they want to do to make housing a quote-unquote right, they're actually forcing the entire country or the entire group into a tenancy contract with the government via property tax. It's literally, I mean, that's servitude. Like you did not make a decision to enter into that contract, but the government is forcing you to.
But the social contract there.
That was my point.
Yeah.
Is how can housing be a right as soon as I stop paying my property tax if they take my house away from me?
Well, then you go.
So housing can't be a right as long as property taxes exist.
Yeah. I mean, my argument is that if you look at when Gavin talks, the stuff behind him is what defends that right. But, then again, I'm a crazy American. And if any of you have any similar views as me, you're considered like an abomination of Canadian value. I've heard that
So
from
I
other
want to talk
Canadians.
about the equality of outcomes thing. There was a significant gap in the housing plan that the Liberal government released, and that's how they plan to help our homeless veteran population in Canada.
Well, I'll say there was a gap. I mean, I don't have a free house. I mean, if housing's a right, I didn't get included in this. I'm paying rent, damn it.
Yeah.
The particular gap that I am concerned by, the lack of inclusion by our federal government, is the approximately 3,000 homeless Canadian veterans that are barely mentioned in the proposed housing strategy.
Well, we just bought a bunch of insulated, heated trailers. Didn't that go to the veterans? I mean, the people that served this country and defended us, against threats. That must have been where all those heated trailers went to, right?
No, and I don't think that's where the $40 billion is going to go.
I'm pretty sure the soldiers we are looking after are the returning ISIS soldiers.
Oh, that would be an awesome segue, but that's not the part of the show we're at.
We're giving them all of the stuff because we need to reintegrate them into society.
Dude.
Okay, well let's talk about that. We've got 10 minutes for the worst Star Wars video ever, Return of the Jihad. So there's a bunch of articles that I linked. The first one is by far my favorite for the returning jihadis. The solution to this problem, like many things with our government, is to blame Harper. Because as we know, Harper is literally the devil. So there's a report that's come out that says there are approximately 60 ISIS fighters that have returned to Canada. And
sorry, did these guys return like over 2 years ago now? And we just hadn't figured out what to do with them?
The 60 that they're referring to returned to Canada in 2015. So the majority of those likely before Justin Trudeau came to power in November of 2015. So we don't know how many returned in 2016 or 2017, but the 60 that we know about, definitely Harper's fault.
Okay. So
this sounds like something I would see on Saturday Night Live. Like, what the fuck is this?
Okay, great.
What bothers me, like, Goodale has not been able to give a number for how many have come since they took over. So it seems like, well, first off, it's absolutely deplorable that the Harper government allowed these 60 to come back.
Wow.
But at least they apparently were keeping track of them and knew the 60 that came back. Since then, we have no idea who's come back, and there's been zero tracking of anybody.
It's okay. They're going to reintegrate them into society. I heard Minister Goodale say so. I also heard Minister Goodale say that he was... Sorry, say that again?
I was just saying, they're reintegrating them with art-based pedagogy and poetry, and a series. It said a series of podcasts. Did you see that?
I think you
true. I didn't see that.
You mispronounced pedophilia. I think is.
Well, that's what's going to happen when they come back.
So Matt's referring to the last article of this topic, and the quote is, "What we're doing with the analysis that we've conducted is in fact build a series of podcasts and counter narratives through art-based pedagogy and poetry to empower the broader population in understanding how ISIS is using and abusing religious interpretations." So this is the current government's method of de-radicalizing the ISIS combatants that have come back to Canada. And all of this is on a vault, they're not forced to review this material. They're not asked to review this material. It's just available to them if they choose to access it.
Yeah, but Harper never had a podcast.
Yeah, you know what? That's it, man. I give up. I'm
What this is a massive government expenditure, literally for the sake of virtue signaling. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's
The
true.
government
Okay,
has
so
stolen your money at gunpoint to virtue signal on a massive basis. So some academics that are connected to some bureaucrats could get a bunch of grant money so they could go get underage prostitutes probably, and so that they could go watch like a documentary about 0.0001% of ISIS fighters that came back after killing innocent people and became like, righteous again. That's all this is. It's a giant virtue signal circle jerk.
Poetry. Our government spent money on poetry.
Probably
it
probably
sounds
New
like
York.
People could
Yeah.
voluntarily access.
It sounds
to
like a
then
Saturday Night
de-radicalize
Live
themselves.
skit. Like, what the fuck?
Like this. Like this is something that we would jokingly say that the liberals would do, like being completely sarcastic and being like, "Oh yeah, they'll just spend the money on fucking poetry to get the ISIS guys back in." Like
finger painting.
like,
dude, that's
exactly.
that's gonna be next week at watch, dude.
Like the fact that this is actually what they're saying with a straight face, and they're spending our money to do it, like blows your mind.
It's not even they're spending the money. It's they're spending the money in bad faith. Goodale was on Question Period on CTV this week, and they asked him, what's the likely outcome of the reintegration programs? And this is a quote from the public safety minister. Mr. Goodale says, once a person has been in a war zone, once they've actively engaged in terrorist-related activities, the capacity to turn them around is pretty remote. That's why you have to use other tools, including collecting evidence and prosecuting wherever and whenever you can. So
I've got some other tools.
This is a tacit admission to the plan for the pedagogy and podcasts and poetry has a pretty remote chance of working. So we might need to utilize some other tools like prosecution. Maybe we should just start with that one.
Yeah, but as a grade 9,
war criminals and terrorists? No, probably not.
in grade 9,
remind everybody,
get me to read poetry.
We give them money, Matt. That's what we do for terrorists. We give them money, lots of it,
and say sorry.
So I want to remind everybody at this point that firearms owners, who by definition have never committed any crime whatsoever in Canada, are the most law-abiding members of our society. They are tracked where they live. They have a background check performed on them daily. They are monitored and to the nth degree. And these guys are just released freely with voluntary access to poetry.
That's dangerous.
And podcasts and pedagogy.
So,
don't forget.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. This might be an opportunity for us, though, to maybe get some government grant money because we have a podcast.
Thinking outside the box.
So here's the thing. Where is the poetry? I would have loved to have actually had a podcast or poetry that we could use and make fun of on this podcast. But even trying to find it, I can't find it. So how are the ISIS people able to access it?
Yeah, maybe it's on the dark web.
Pedagogy, though. Are those?
I mean, that's a good question.
That's those little potato things that are like raviolis.
Fuck. That's a good question, though, Marty. No, Marty has a point because
you cook them with bacon.
Marty's point is accurate. Is like pretty legit. We've established that like the whole notion is like a complete waste and fraud of money, right? Like just the fact of like paying for poetry and all this nonsense was probably like some scam, to get academics some money. But it could be even worse of a scam because they didn't even produce anything. There's no deliverable. Dude, where is it? That's what I want to know. I mean,
at least they could have gone and like photocopied some fucking terrible 12th grade English assignment or something, and like put that out there. But no, they
probably plagiarized Pablo Neruda, and every time he said like "flower of my loin" or whatever he said in Spanish, they probably changed it to like "flower of my jihad" or something,
But this is probably the thing where they don't even believe in it. They just believe in the fact that there's a good portion of the population that are not going to speak out about this. Like, you know what I mean?
Why is that? Like,
Because our
old-fashioned
country is full of cucks.
Western politeness. It got us this
Yeah.
far.
okay,
And,
they're
I mean,
full of cucks,
of all
but
people,
why?
Jim,
Why are you full of cucks? Why? You know?
Fluoride in
Western
water.
politeness. Tim is right.
yeah. And of all
I don't
people,
like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
and of all people, I mean, Tim is our resident lyricist and poet. Like, he should be the most offended by this.
Yeah, dude.
Well,
that's
that's why he's liberal Tim.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't see a single penny go to Tim to write dirty limericks to reconvert ISIS fight.
Jesus.
Like, I can't even keep a straight face when I say that. Like, that's. Are you fucking
Holy
kidding me? Did they like how does anyone take I will take the budget will balance itself more serious as a comment than
stupid fucking budget.
poetry. That poetry is gonna reconvert an ISIS fighter. Like,
And the budget will balance itself.
That's the right drop.
like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
No, it's ridiculous. It's patently ridiculous. And it's to the point where even the Minister of Public Safety is like, yeah, we know it's not going to work, but we already spent the money. So.
This is what happens when virtue signaling gets out of hand. It's not just like, seriously, when you elect people that are that into their status, like status,
Their own
seeking-
asses.
Yes, like that. When you elect those type of people, when they have the power and the ability to steal your money with the threat of gun, violence, with the threat of force, and virtue signal with that money, this is what you get. It's the same as that, Native American like monument nonsense. It's all virtue signaling. But because, nobody stood up to these people, nobody said, hey, we want a government that's actually going to do governance, not virtue signaling with our money. This is what you get. I mean, this is the end result. And I think Americans that listen to this podcast need to heed this and make sure we don't let this happen. I'm not blaming you guys because you guys are like, you guys are fighting the noble resistance against this massive, cuckery.
yeah.
But like, dude, this is the end result that we need to fight against, dude.
Yeah. I mean,
It's even crazier when you consider that we're running a deficit. So not only did they steal all our money and spend it, they borrowed extra money to pay these guys. Like, they borrowed money to pay for this poetry.
yeah.
It's the same thing as entitled people borrowing more credit card debt to buy that next, expensive handbag or that next, more expensive Mercedes to keep up with the Joneses and seek, that's all that is.
I've got a much cheaper option. I've got these metal and wood crates behind me that are filled with like brass and lead, like at 30 cents ish per unit. Like, that's per jihadi. Like, we could use that to just take care of it, and it solves itself. 30 cents per.
Wow.
And
That's
if there's only 60 of them that we know of,
it was like almost purpose built to solve problems like that.
that costs like nothing,
$20.
Yeah. Like, I'd even pay the $20 myself.
There was a day when men in North America and governments in North America fucking decapitated, hung, executed, like,
People that commit treason?
like the Barbary pirates. And like, can you imagine if like Americans, I don't know if this is interesting history thing real quick, but can you imagine if any Americans went and joined like the Barbary pirates and stuff? When the Marines landed in Tripoli, if they found an American, they probably would have strung and quartered him or like keel hauled him rather than just, fought against him in line fire. You know what I'm saying? Like, that shit would not be remotely tolerated.
No.
Like, it's
But,
not
like,
just
even-
you're like an enemy in your foreign lands, doing bullshit and we got to fucking come and kill you. That's like fucking treason. Like,
Yeah.
full stop.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even enough that we throw them in jail, and pay the
No,
bill for
fuck
that.
no.
We have to give them $10 million now, like.
Treason means death, like, fuck that. Sorry, Andrew. I'm trying to limit my F-bombs. I limit them a lot more than I do on my show, but...
Well, I don't edit your show, so I appreciate that. I did miss my segue a minute ago for...
Dude, that's
Marty
like 3 segues missed.
I know, I missed, but when we were talking about where they were getting this money and spending it to virtue signal, I have good news about taxation being theft. I don't know if everyone's heard this, but if you haven't, taxation is theft, and we have a whole government department devoted to separating me from my hard-earned currency. And apparently they're really fucking bad at it. Like, really bad. So there's a report that's come out from the Canadian, I'm sorry, not from, but in regards to the Canadian Revenue Agency. Last year, the CRA call center blocked more than half the calls they received and gave taxpayers incorrect answers to their tax questions in 1 out of every 3 calls they did answer. So there's a report from our Auditor General that's been tabled in the House of Commons this past week. The CRA has actively blocked calls from taxpayers so that it could say it met its service standard, keeping people waiting no more than 2 minutes. They've also found that the numbers that the CRA publishes are not, I'll go ahead and call them factual. The CRA says that 90% of its calls are able to connect with either a call center agent or its automated self-serve system, which is technically correct. But it results in the majority of callers having to call 4 times in order to get through to someone that actually works at the agency.
That's wild. You know, if that type of thing were to happen with like a judge or like a federal prosecutor, like all the cases they tried would be like retried or like thrown out. So like anybody that has like a tax penalty because of this error should like, you know, be forgiven basically for this filing season. My opinion, but that's never going to happen. That's
so bad.
I agree with Matt. We should all get our tax money back from this year.
And every year.
We should get our tax money back, and we should then stop giving the government tax money, and the CRA should be violently abolished.
I'm in.
I don't say that just because I'm currently like arguing with them about my business taxes, but also I say that because I'm currently arguing with them about my business taxes.
I don't know if you heard that, but I let one rip for the CRA.
Classy.
I am a classy guy. Also, the CRA would be wise. Never mind. I'm not going to do that. Fuck.
Please don't threaten our government.
I'm not that drunk.
Yet.
Like, I wake up tomorrow morning see like on Fox News, their video barred from the CBC, you know, American on podcast threatens the Canadian, blah, blah, blah. I would never do that. I'm a pacifist.
My money's on you, Matt.
Yeah, Matt versus the CRA. I see Matt winning.
Dude, especially angry Matt.
Yeah, this is pretty good. With our government giving money to so many random people and apologizing for everything that's bad's ever happened by today's standards.
I wish we'd.
I think it's time for the CRA to issue an apology I think it's time for the CRA to issue an apology in the form of a remittance check for all of the tax dollars they've ever separated me from.
I agree with that. That's fair.
Yeah.
I do want to ask one quick question. Like, you know, talking about the CRA and like the taxation is theft thing. Like when it comes to precedents, not just on taxation is theft, don't want to go back to the previous topic too much, but is there any precedent for the Canadian government to basically welcome terrorists, quote unquote terrorists? Remember, I said quote unquote terrorists back into the country with poetry and song, such as like groups like the Irish Republican Army, you know, or the Provisionals, you know, in Northern Ireland. Like, did that happen? Or are they not the right demographic to do this type of thing? Because that right there shows that it's virtue signaling, has nothing to do with some kind of philosophical argument that, like, you know, poetry can help extremism.
So for example, Matt, on that point, there's a somewhat local individual who's like 90 years old at this point, who, as a kid, was part of the Nazi organization. He was a translator for the Nazis. And it was recently discovered that he was a Nazi. I mean, he never lied on any of his applications. Like, he, and in the question, he's like, yeah, I was part of this. Like, my option was translate or be shot. I chose to translate. And, like, there's been a legal battle where they're trying to get him deported now because of this exact issue. So this is a guy that's in like his 90s, been living here for 50 years, and they're trying to deport him. He's not getting any podcasts or poetry.
No, tell him 10 million.
Yeah.
There's your white privilege for you. Oh my God. I can't say anything right now because I'm going to say something that's probably illegal.
But no, that's retarded. Like,
that pisses me the fuck off. I'm sorry. Okay, we can go on.
I mean, and
goddamn.
It's one of those things where, like, if we took a hard stance on it and we're like, yeah, you were part of the Nazi, you were part of any organization that fought against our country, get the hell out.
Sure.
I'd be like, all right, sure. But it's exactly what you were asking. It's this bullshit. It's like, well, if you're from a country that we're currently trying to like get a bunch of people in here for immigrants, then yeah, you're just fine, regardless of whether or not you shot against our soldiers, whether or not you took up arms against this country. Sure, you're welcome here. Here's your free stuff. Yeah. That's where the bullshit comes in.
But yeah, the guy that we legally let immigrate here that never lied about his past, now all of a sudden is being forced to deport. Like, I mean, I could see if he lied about it. Like,
yeah. And I'm really, it's not a case I followed that closely. I believe that the issue was that, like, he never, on his initial immigration year, he was never asked. And he was asked like 15 years later, 20 years later or something like that. They asked him and he's like, yeah, I did that. Like, he never lied about it anywhere along the way. And he self-incriminated himself by like 20 years later, 30 years later, saying, well, yeah, that was the role that I had to do. And then they're like, well, get the hell out.
That was still, yeah. Like, so curious. Does that apply to Monsef too?
Nope.
Like, no, we still don't know what country she's from.
Because I mean, she didn't lie about it, did she? She just didn't, tell us the truth, right?
Who's this to her?
Mary Monsef is our favorite Liberal MP.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Definitely a hooer.
She's a Liberal MP, and she doesn't even know she falsely gave her country of birth.
Her parents gave her parents falsely declared their country of origin when they immigrated into Canada. We've discussed this at length on the show in the past. There are show notes.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? That's why I didn't go over well. Like the hooer thing. Like, I think that was an inside joke from our podcast. Sorry. That's why I didn't land too well.
She is questionably a citizen, yet is still an MP.
But like,
and shouldn't be an MP.
Is that like our president? MPs, like,
withholding is lying on your entry questions, right? Even if they don't ask you the question that you need to ask. So if we're gonna have a hard line, we should have a hard line.
They did not ask. They wrote in the wrong information.
Yeah, the parents allegedly disclosed the wrong country or an inaccurate country of origin, a less than truthful country of origin, if you will.
I don't understand how, like, God,
Canada.
I'm glad I'm not Canadian.
Bro, do you eat in Canada?
But just think of how much more material you have for your podcast. If you were.
I think Matt was trying to ask what an MP was. An MP is a member of parliament. They're the equivalent of a congressperson.
Gotcha. And they, like, obviously, they have the same citizenship requirement, right? Like,
yes, they have to be a Canadian citizen.
Right.
They don't have to have been born here or anything. They just have
to at least have their
citizenship.
Yeah.
Yeah, similarly to the U.S., like the president has different requirements. Our prime minister has slightly different requirements than an MP.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, currently our
right.
requirement is that they basically just take up space.
Have really good hair and nice socks.
Yeah.
It's important to have good socks.
Wow.
All right, let's talk about something going on in Toronto. Because what's talking about Canada without talking about the center of the universe? The Toronto District School Board has voted 18-3 in favor of ending the school resource officer program, and this has been met with thunderous applause from Black Lives Matter.
I'm not saying shit.
So that's a wise choice. The Toronto District School Board is Canada's largest school board, and it has something like 87 schools in its purview. The school resource officer program has been in place in the Toronto District School Board for the past decade, following an incident where a student was shot by another student who brought a firearm into a school. So the school resource officer is full-time Toronto police officers, and their beat, if you will, is a school. They work at the school, they police at the school, and they're there to provide police resources to that school. And
Do those resources include poetry?
I don't believe so.
Interesting.
So this has been an ongoing fight for a small, vocal, visible minority in Toronto for the last several years, particularly Black Lives Matter and the Jane and Finch Action Against Poverty group, who feel that having school resource officers puts what's the polite way to say this? At risk, visible minorities at risk.
Yeah, I don't get this. Where, like, I don't understand how having an officer present at the school to deal with any issues that may come up is a bad thing. I don't see what the issue is. Like, this seems like a good program.
It victimizes marginalized youth because there's 10% of the students that were surveyed. So they've surveyed 15,000 students, and 10% of the students responded that they felt like they were being targeted or were otherwise unsafe due to the presence of the school resource officer. 57% of them felt positively about the program, though. So I guess...
so right there, you got 57% like the program, 10% strongly didn't like the program. So in comes this liberal love and championship of the marginalized. And everyone goes and runs around like idiots, signaling, with the whole SJW egalitarian bullshit, and they cut the program. So, yeah, I'm pretty pissed off about this. I think I was the one that put this in.
Yeah, but I mean, we all know that cops are racist, so like, of course they're gonna pick on people, right? Like,
yeah.
I also like the fact that they pulled the members of the Jane and Finch region and said, would you like cops around? And the response was no.
Yeah, shocking for everyone out in podcast land. Jane and Finch is Toronto's equivalent of South Central Los Angeles. It is not the most desirable neighborhood to live in, nor is it the safest.
Yeah. It's the kind of place that you really don't even like driving through at high speeds, to be honest.
Yeah.
So the 18 people trustees who voted in favor of canceling the school resource officer program, what is their what is going to happen to them if there is a violent action at the school?
I hope they are all held personally liable.
Yeah.
What about Rodney Diverlus, co-founder of Black Lives Matter?
They can all stand up and virtue
Toronto.
signal about gun control afterwards.
Yeah, who said this has been a 10-year battle with a number of organizations, and I think there's a sense of justice and relief that they've been heard,
and that they've now made schools less safe.
Yeah, so this is again a situation where, like, statistically, what these people say is not proven. So they basically just stand up and they say a lie, and due to racism and signaling, you do not defend yourself. You do not defend the truth, and these people prevail. So prevail.
And honestly, I think it
people are
goes back to an earlier comment about equity. You know, they look at it and go, you know, in this region, we have a disproportionate percentage of people, you know, that are engaged in criminal activity. And they look at it and go, well, more of our people are being arrested for criminal activity. So we need to get rid of the police officers that are arresting everybody, and therefore we'll have less people being arrested and everybody will be the same again. And it's instead of looking at the underlying causes of why, you know, why people are committing crimes in that region, instead they just get rid of the cops. And so that way we have less people getting arrested.
Well, yeah. I mean, if there's no cops and you don't get arrested, no crime happened, right? I mean, if you can't make it a statistic.
Jane and Finch has plenty of statistics.
This infuriates me. This is eliminating these young people's ability to deal with the social realities of adult life. You need to learn how to interact with police officers. And it should be in such a way that the school resource officer is someone who these marginalized youth can go to for guidance. If the police are legitimately targeting or profiling students, okay, fine. That is an issue that needs to be dealt with. But I don't think that's the case, because there has been no founded accusations of the police profiling these individuals in the 10 years the program's been in effect.
Or if they're worried about, an officer
address the issue.
Well, and if they're worried about an officer of a particular ethnicity targeting students of a particular ethnicity, why not make that officer that ethnicity? Like,
because race doesn't matter.
No, race doesn't matter.
Race doesn't matter.
Race doesn't matter to Black Lives Matter. They say as soon as you become an officer, you become blue.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, but it does to these people. So, like, it's absolute nonsense. This whole thing.
How is this organization allowed to exist in this country? This is an incredibly racist organization.
Well, again, this is 10% of the people, in this school voted against this, said they did not like the program with the police officers in it. 57 said that they thought it was positive. And yet we go with the marginalized people. We hold up the champion, the marginalized, downtrodden people, and they're not even, I don't know. To be honest, I feel sorry for the officers, because there's officers in there who know, like, when they're going in there, and if they do an action, like say they stop someone from dealing drugs, or if they get a weapon out of there, then maybe they saved a kid's life, or maybe they made it
actually done something.
Yeah. Like, when someone has their whole life ahead of them still,
Yeah.
And now they're pulled out, and because it's just because of 10% of the people don't want them there.
Yeah, it is hard, because when you think about it, so much of our police resources are spent on traffic violations. This is one of those this is one of the sort of rare opportunities where the police are having a hugely positive impact on society, and we can't have that.
Yeah, and actually,
well, let's imagine if you elected a government by by the 10% people, who the 10% most marginalized people voted for this person, and that person became the prime minister.
We'd all have NDP reps.
But it's just ridiculous. This whole championing of the marginalized is just.
I'd almost say that the firearms owners are the most marginalized. We are the most discriminated against.
You make a good point.
Yeah, especially look at the media.
You forget, though, that firearms owners are part of the other class generally.
Yeah, typically we're part of the patriarchy and all that other stuff. So,
yeah, you're screwed no matter what you do.
It was men that invented guns, so
I think in many cases white men, but we don't go there on this podcast.
The worst kind of men.
Well, on that note, let's talk about how everything is white supremacy. Because everything is white supremacy.
What is this?
Yeah.
1 out of 4? I think the segue happened, ladies.
I finally got a segue.
You need
finally got a segue.
Dude, you need a good drop for that. Like when the segue finally happens. Like landed segue should be a drop. I'm giving you. There you go.
Best I can do. I got my clown horn. That's all I got.
It's a gay bomb, baby.
There, that's a good segue. Drop.
Can we start referring to the clown horn as the Trevor horn, though?
Yes.
Yes.
So many kinds of yes.
Is he still listening?
No, he's tuned out, but he's going to catch up tomorrow. So that one's just for you, Trevor. Sweet dreams.
You know what my favorite part about
Dreaming of
talking Trevor
clowns.
on this podcast is? The fact that he pays us to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worth it.
Yeah.
So worth it. All right, let's talk about how everything is white supremacy. Or in this case, how a poster that said, "It's okay to be white," caused a divisive issue at the University of Regina and can't be tolerated. Oh, this is gold. So I've got both sides of the story, if you will. Not really, but I've got two sides of the story. One article from the CBC and one article from the Toronto Sun. So that's pretty much as opposite as we can get in the.
Let me guess which side the
mass
CBC
media.
side is.
Yeah, okay. Have a guess at the CBC side.
Oh, I'm assuming that they would be that the "it's okay to be white" is very diverse. Wow, I've had a lot to drink tonight.
I understand. So to give credit to the CBC in this case, the CBC does manage to report the facts in an accurate manner, but they also managed to only write 300 words on the topic. So there wasn't a lot of room for them to take license with the material. The Toronto Sun wrote 150 words on the topic and also managed to do it in a way that didn't take a lot of license with the material. The sum total of this is, at University of Regina, there were signs that were posted that said, "It's okay to be white." And these signs were posted in a variety of places, which may amount to vandalism just because of the way they were posted in the university, how they were posted and without permission. Because apparently at the university, you can't just go around sticking up signs to things, which I think sounds reasonable.
Yeah, but
I'm pretty sure if Black Lives Matter do it, a different standard of logic would have been applied.
But they just did it. They just put the signs up.
They just put the signs up, and the
you mean
signs
if
are
it's allowed.
Well, I'm saying that I believe that this does violate their sign rules on their campus.
Okay, yeah. I thought you meant physically.
The sign itself is not the sign itself is the bigger problem. So, University of Regina president had a statement. Simply put, these signs have no place at our university. Their divisive message is not in keeping with our commitment to building a respectful, welcoming, and diverse environment for all who study, work, and live and visit here. And whoever's rattling their microphone cord needs to stop. That wasn't in the statement. I'm editorializing. It's just super distracting.
So, what's great about this whole thing, to me, is that it's exposed sort of the whole liberal agenda from the university, from the media, and types of things, saying that it's not okay to be white.
Yep.
Well, that's the thing, is that's the divisive nature of this sign, right?
But it's actually forced them all to come out and be like, no, it's not okay to be white. You can't put that sign up.
Right, and the sign is not racist. The sign is not white supremacist. The sign is a message that it's okay to be white. Not that it's better to be white. Not that you're wrong if you're not white. Not that you're inferior if you're not white.
Right.
Just an affirmation that
isn't...
it's okay to be white.
Yeah, much like it's okay to be anything.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that's reflected in, and you can bet they're really pissed. But that's why both articles very short. I expected a lot more. But the whole thing was, you can tell that there'd be people with what's going on with Jordan Peterson and whatnot and stuff like that. And like if you look at what's going on in academia in Western civilization, you know these people, like, they wanted to say a hell of a lot more than what those two articles said.
Oh yeah.
Like, and it's been revealed, like, this is the poster posting has been done like through in America, where it has like a much bigger like it's reported on much more thoroughly, kind of, and the people are tweeting it and Facebooking it, going, "I just tore this down. This is racist and blah blah blah," and that's kind of like the rabid leftist reaction to it that I think the poster was trying to get, and I think the CBC and the Sun are kind of downplaying that because they know that this is just supposed to provoke a response. But
Yeah,
interestingly,
and honestly,
the
whoever
CBC
came up with
comments
it
are disabled.
oh yeah,
whoever came up with this originally, it really is like it's a genius sign in that, you know, there is nothing provoking about it, but you know that the rabid left is going to bite at this.
Oh yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and it just
they're totally
it's
losing their
purely
mind.
Yeah, if you take it for what it says.
Yeah, it purely exposes their, racist and shows the left to be everything that they condemn, kind of thing.
Yeah.
you're a fucking white male.
I don't have
All I
any
think
jobs
of-
for that, but I should get some.
All I think of though is that fucking meme where it's that dude at the front of the boat with the spear, and it's like, "You're a fucking white whale." He's going after Moby Dick. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Oh god.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
have any
steering
white
clear
man
of this
drops.
one for the most part because I'm a
Fucking white male.
well,
Yeah.
also I'm a very accepting guy. You know, I love virtue signaling. I love people talking about how much my the way I was born shows that I don't deserve anything based on my efforts, and that the world's problems are because of me. So yeah, I have no comment.
Well, everybody, welcome Liberal Matt. I think he's surpassed Liberal
Yeah.
Tim.
Jesus.
I also don't want to get your podcast kicked off of like iTunes or get like turned back at the border next time I come up to
Wow.
Hunter for a podcast shoot.
We've already lost our
Appreciate that.
funding
Let's,
from
pivot on.
YouTube.
If you
Let's
want to get
pivot
some
on.
real shit, tune into Liberty Death Podcast because there will be words that start with letters other than F that might be related to this subject matter. They're later in the alphabet. Let's just put it that way.
Let's talk about guns. I got some gun news.
Yeah.
Let's do guns.
Does
All right,
anybody
so
have
the first
a
one.
subcompact SIG 250? Because I do. Just saying.
No, can't say that I do. But if you have a 320, I would return it because it might blow up on you.
It's totally unloaded, but this does have I do have a 15-round magazine.
I will raise you one SIG 320, and I will see you 25 grams of fentanyl, and also a bunch of weapons charges.
Ooh.
I've got a story from London, Ontario, with $100,000 in drugs and firearms seized, and 2 individuals facing 35 various and assorted charges. And boy, oh boy, is the list of things that the cops got off these guys a good one. My particular favorite is one of the individuals that has charges leveled against him has 3 counts of possessing a firearm, crossbow, prohibited weapon, restricted weapon, prohibited device, any ammunition, or an explosive device, well prohibited from doing so. That, in a nutshell, is Canadian firearms laws at work. This criminal drug dealer is under a weapons prohibition order that prevents him from legally owning any firearms, crossbows, prohibited or restricted weapons, prohibited devices, ammunition, or explosive devices. And yet he is still being charged with 3 counts of careless storage of a firearm, 2 counts of possessing a loaded or regulated firearm, 2 counts unlicensed possession of a prohibited device or restricted weapon, and all of the drug crimes. Clearly, gun laws stop criminals.
This guy just
Yeah.
needs to go buy an antique firearm. Then he's good.
Yeah, how's that
legal
work up
advice of
there?
Gavin does not reflect CPP.
How's that work up there? Are black powders and muzzleloaders considered non-firearms?
They're all firearms. They're all firearms.
I only mention that because
Everything is a
it's interesting.
firearm.
Like in most states, like in Virginia, Washington D.C., and like Texas. I don't know now about Washington D.C., but when I lived there, like in that area before, muzzleloaders were not considered firearms. In Texas, you cannot open carry pistols even with a license or whatever, but you could open carry like a pre-whatever year black powder revolver. And
So allow me to blow your mind. In Canada, it's possible for a pellet gun to be considered a firearm and require a firearms license.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
God.
it all has to. Yeah,
Not every pellet gun, but if the pellet gun exceeds 550 feet a second at the muzzle, then it's considered a firearm, and you must have a firearms license in order to acquire or possess the said pellet gun.
But if you have something that's
are there
considered
paintball guns that
antique,
exceed 550? I thought there
in
were.
theory, yes.
It also there's a second one where it has to exceed a certain energy at the muzzle.
Yeah, but you can own rifles and handguns that are considered antiques, which there's a set of criteria. It needs to be manufactured before a certain date, and
1997.
and the ammunition needs to be not readily available. In which case, then you do not need any sort of license to own them or shoot them or do anything with them. And in theory, then you could open carry like a single action revolver, because that's not considered a firearm unless you commit a crime with it, in which case then it is considered a firearm. We've got a lot of weird laws that kind of go back and forth where it's not, but it is if you do X with it.
Sure, it's like if you hold up to the bank with a finger, like if you hold up a bank with a finger gun, your finger gun gets you a weapons charge because you intimated a firearm.
Yeah,
in the commission of a crime.
So what's with the bottle jack in that picture? What's with the?
Why are we going
jack?
back to the article?
So actually, that's the same comment I was going to make, and I'm like, what was interesting to me on this article is the cocaine press.
Yeah.
First off, I didn't know that a cocaine press was a thing, and it turns out a cocaine press is a bottle jack.
Princess Auto.
Yeah, definitely a Chinese bottle jack.
What?
What is?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Is that a Canadian?
Yeah, same. I didn't know
never
this
heard
was
of
a
that
thing either. So I'm like, I had the same thing as you, Tim. I'm like, I saw like the bottle jack, and I like went through all the things. There, I'm like, what is all that? Like, what is that thing?
Because they always have a real weird assortment of stuff. Like that's a weird. I think that's a Smith & Wesson Model 41. It's a really odd. It's a really odd pistol, isn't it?
So isn't that a 22 LR pistol?
Yeah, but it's a Smith & Wesson 41 from what I can tell, and it's in 22 long rifle.
Yeah, I just like. I mean, just look at the magazine. It looks like it's a 22 LR.
Yeah, for affordable plinking.
I mean,
he's pressing cocaine in his bottle jack
with his bottle jack.
Sounds like a nice afternoon.
Is a very strange looking pistol.
You know what? Like, this whole arrest is just racism.
It's white supremacist, yeah.
You know, this arrest would never happen if there wasn't cops around.
Yeah,
you just get rid of the cops.
No, the cops were seeking to arrest somebody based on race and color, and it's all racism, and the charges should be dropped. It's bullshit.
If only we'd read this guy poetry.
Does not sound like a race issue, but
Vanderploeg, that's Philippine, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe he assumes the race of somebody else.
Disagree.
You think he's a canoe-owning Canadian?
I think it's time to talk about an access to information request that we got from the CCFR. So
I bet,
once
that
upon a
guy's,
time,
I bet that guy's an alcoholic that likes monuments or that dislikes monuments
By the way-
that are made out of steel.
Remember how earlier we talked about good segues? That was not one.
That was the worst segue ever.
Dude,
Yeah.
weren't you gonna talk about Duterte and like Tim threw it right up there, set it
Yeah.
up for you, and instead of like even taking a swing at it, you like scratch your balls and spit your tobacco out. Like you just stepped up to the plate, had the meatball coming down the pike, and instead of swinging at it for that home run, you just kind of scratched the old nutsack. You know what I'm saying? Like it blew
why
it.
would we talk
You're
about
like 1 for 5.
Duterte? That was last week.
Oh, I read. Okay.
Gavin did the drawing.
Duterte
You
was
missed the segue. You missed the segue to plug last week's episode.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not a thing
Failure.
that we do.
Failure.
80% lowers. Everybody remembers when we had 80% lowers, and then they got prohibited because it's illegal to have 80% lowers now.
What if 10% of the people
because they
want
could be turned
80%
into
lowers?
M16s.
Right.
That's
so,
fucking bullshit. Apparently,
No. They can. They can.
so can my dick.
But
Okay.
so can. But so can.
I mean, okay, that's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'll give
Dude,
you that one.
I drop like 30 loads a second.
Bump fire
The
Matt.
doc with the boner drag weeds.
Matt takes a lot of zinc supplements. That's
Bump
I
fire
take
Matt.
way too much zinc. My heart is like
Yeah.
palpitating from the amount of zinc I take. I have to take like twice as much magnesium to keep my heart from exploding through my chest. I have to beat off like all day long.
So much
just to keep-
soy just to counteract the
Oh,
zinc.
Yeah.
You just need to find a country music concert to do it at.
Too soon? Too soon?
Oh fuck. Oh fuck.
The shots came from 300 yards over that.
Yeah.
Tim.
I-
There's a
we're-
media blackout on this. We're not allowed to talk about it anymore.
Why everybody was running away from there like why do my clothes smell like have this faint ammonia smell like
It smelled like fried mushrooms.
No one's talking about it anymore because everybody's mad.
that just
Oh.
happened.
Oh.
Holy
That was
shit.
outside.
That's
It
gonna go
sounds
down
like
in
this,
CPP
I-
history.
It's times like this that I'm super glad that Andrew has to edit this shit.
That's why you tune
I'm
into the
pretty sure
live
this week's
show.
Marty's turn to edit.
This is going behind the paywall.
I'd say it's my
Yeah.
turn. I want it out.
Yes. This is the kind of content you will get behind the paywall, people. So dig deep because we need your help. Visit
Yeah, we do need your help.
patreon.com/CPP
Yeah.
because we are all going to have some serious legal bills after this.
All right, 80% lowers. So they were a thing.
80% lower.
You mean machine?
We had no
gun
issues with those things.
You mean
now
machine
they're
gun
prohibited.
parts?
Now
Wait,
they're
hold on.
prohibited.
So if
Or blocks of aluminum, however you want to describe them.
Or machine gun parts?
So what happened? Did Black Lives Matter not like them?
They don't have the agency to build a machine gun out of them. Is the problem?
So Matt,
Apparently-
ultimately, you just hit the nail on the head. That's the reason they're prohibited, is that the people that bought them didn't have the agency to finish them. Therefore, they're now prohibited.
That seems to be the logic from the access to information requests that the CCFR filed. So I want to thank Tracy Wilson at CCFR for publishing the documents related to this. It turns out that 33 AR-15 receivers were registered as being completed by the end user out of the thousands of 80% lowers that were imported into the country. So
Now,
Like,
the
this
one thing I don't
action
know is
seems
where's
to
the
have-
thousands number come from?
that is the number that was alleged on how many were imported into the country. I have no idea how they arrived at that number because they're not a serialized component.
Who
The
said that?
government
Ralph,
probably
Ralph
made
did
it
it?
I don't see that in the access. Did I miss that line in the access to information request?
It's not in the access to information request. This is just a number that was put forth when we were talking about the issue originally, that there may have been thousands of these. 100 or 33? We don't.
33 of 50 were registered, so we're good.
We don't know how many were brought into the country because there was no requisite to track how many were brought into the country because they're not a serialized component and they're not registered.
Because they're not dangerous. Is that it?
It is precisely because they're not dangerous. It's because it's not a firearm.
Well, I've never felt more endangered.
And again, we talked about this before, but it's not trivial to complete one of these. Like, you actually have to have some tooling. You actually have to spend. It is more expensive than to just buy a lower.
Well, I'm just curious though. Like, if those are 80%, if we have like a finished AR-15, can we call that like a 98%? Because if you mill out like another 2%, you get like an M16. Can we do that?
Well, okay, so here's a fun thing from the access to information response. The Canadian Firearms Program is unable to distinguish whether the firearms, we're talking about the 33 that were registered.
Mm-hmm.
The Canadian Firearms Program is unable to distinguish whether these firearms were built using 80% receiver blanks less complete than 80%, or whether they were completely fabricated by the registrant, i.e. from scratch using raw materials. So there's no way to tell what level of finishing the 33 completed firearms were.
Well, we're all legal. Anyone who registered one of those guns is a law-abiding gun owner. Give them a phone call.
Yeah,
put the
CRA on it. They're good with the phones.
Yeah.
But okay, of those three options, so if somebody has completed their own AR-15, they've either built it from an 80%, they've either built it from something less than 80%, or from a block of aluminum. Right?
That is less than 80%.
Only the 80% is now prohibited.
Yeah.
So, like, you can still build your own from something that's less than 80%, or just from a
oh man, I have a business idea for us guys.
79% lowers.
Exactly.
Yeah. only the 80%.
I'll invest in that.
Prohibited.
But Gavin, were you saying something? Were you saying that my AR-15 receiver is actually a 98% M16 receiver?
I may have mentioned that. Yeah.
You know what you should do? You should set up. I don't know enough about manufacturing, but I'm maybe like, I don't know how automated you can do this type of thing, but I say you set up like tooling machines or tooling, automated die machines, whatever it's called, so that you can basically create 79, 78, even 79.99, 79.98, etc. lowers.
It's 2%. It's 2 millimeters more material that you need to mill out.
And then, yeah, I mean, and then every time the RCMP or whoever makes the call on this, like makes whatever prohib, you just discontinue that one and go to the next lower 100th of a percent.
There's nothing that says it has to be. It just says 80% are prohibited. It could be more than 80%. So we could do like an 88% complete receiver.
Yes.
Yeah. Fun fact.
Yes.
80% lowers. 80% lowers are not a defined item in the Firearms Act in Canada. 80% comes from an ATF ruling in the US, and that's what these receivers are based on. So we could literally do anything except for what the ATF classifies as an 80% lower receiver, because there's nothing in Canadian law to stipulate how these firearms have to be completed.
What about an 80% Maccabee Defense receiver?
That is at least $700 more than I'm willing to spend on a receiver.
But yes, that would be fine.
Let's jump. We got to move forward a bit. Step the game up.
Dude, I mean, there's so many ways you could fuck with the system on this one. Like,
anyway, I gotta go. I gotta Google Coke presses.
Tim's got to make that money so he can get his Maccabee Defense receiver.
Amazon.ca, do the coca tree.
Apparently they sell those Coke presses right at Princess Auto. I mean, you can just go there and pick one up.
Yep.
As far as like
$20.
And a
do you have to be like
and a crossbow.
Is there a handshake that you need to know? Like, you have to like talk to Jose and be like, "I need that thing for the thing," or like
Cyber Monday special. Go press the sign up.
Hilarious. All right, let's find out where we can stay in touch with everybody on the show. Gavin, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, hang on a second. You forgot the last article.
Yeah, don't skip shit, bro.
What? There's more articles?
We got time. We got time for one. The letter, a testosterone gun imbalance.
Do you guys want to do that? I moved it already. I'll put
We're
it
already
back.
half done. I'm already set.
All right.
Hold on.
What happened to that?
Is it back? Did it
I
get
have it
back there
open
yet?
in my show notes.
oh, so now
Did I
you're
put it
looking
back
at
in the show notes yet?
It's a ghost article. You fucked
This
up.
is going to make for great podcast material. Editing this is going to suck. Okay, it's back.
There you go.
Allegedly. It's
The
okay
only
to
thing
be
alleged. The only thing alleged is the fact that we're high agency folk here.
Oh, here it is.
All right, it's back. It's in the show notes. This article angered me, so I thought we could talk about the blatant stupidity that was involved in whomever wrote it.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. This guy's great.
Hear that, Des Coulihan, MD from Charlottetown? Marty thinks you're great. I think you're a fucking idiot.
Coulihan. Is that Irish? Are the Irish at it again?
When aren't they?
They're an uppity bunch.
So this guy noticed, and that in his weekly Cabela's ad, there were 3 guns that looked suspiciously like assault weapons.
Okay.
So 2 are semi-automatic rifles, and the third is a 12-gauge pump shotgun.
Oh my god.
So the first one that he decides to discuss, the Beretta CX4 fires a 9mm handgun ammo and has 10-bullet magazine. Given the effective range of this weapon is 50 to 75 meters tops, what is the intended hunting target? A sleeping family of rabbits?
What if it was? Des?
Yeah.
What is this guy dropping bull moose from like 1,000 yards away? Like,
Yeah, like,
I don't think so.
okay,
bud.
first off, a 9mm handgun is effective beyond 50 meters.
Yeah.
Also, people hunt deer with pistols, let alone a CX4.
Yeah.
Is this guy a doctor? Dr. Des Coulihan?
It says MD.
MD of what?
I think that stands for massive douchebag, but it might stand for medical doctor.
Mega dick.
Mental disability. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I think it probably stands for moronic dindu.
All right. The second rifle that scared Dr. Des is a DPMS Oracle firing high-powered 223 caliber bullets.
0.223.
That's right, 0.223 caliber bullets. A restricted centerfire weapon with a 5-shot magazine. It's described as a tactical weapon. And the third is I've never even heard of this. The Polaris tactical pump 12-gauge shotgun?
Yeah.
Palias? I've never even heard of this gun.
Where's that
Yeah,
manufactured?
I'm Googling it right now.
I bet.
I bet it's Turkish.
It's
I
probably,
bet it's Turkish.
That's my guess.
it's probably not white people.
As far as I can tell, the shotgun's heat shield, tactical choke, laser accepting mount, and battle sights are better suited to rapid firing police and military SWAT teams rather than being turned on an unruly gaggle of geese per chance.
That was
This we
quite
should have done this.
good. I'm
We
very
should have
proud of
started.
you.
Oh, it was so good.
This should have
Do the bit.
the whole
It's an
show should have been this guy.
Dude,
Yeah. We
dude,
need to get
after
him
when
on
you
the
start
show.
when you started talking about the article like that, Tim, I was like, "Where's my
So-
lox and my my bagels?"
So I'm
What?
I'm looking at
I was wondering where my rock was.
I'm looking at a
Somebody
photo
passed
of
me
this
my
thing.
rock.
I was going for Irish.
I mean, it's got a folding stock too, so you know it's
You nailed it, Tim. You nailed it.
And
It looks like an 870 clone.
and it even
It's an
looks
870
like
clone.
you can
It's
store.
it's a pump action shotgun with a pistol grip.
Yeah, but it's got a folding stock. Like that's dangerous. And it looks like
That's not the photos that I'm seeing.
And it looks like you can even hold 5 rounds in the buttstock. Like
This guy takes 5 rounds in the buttstock.
I'm sure he does. Like
On the upside, this shitty-looking shotgun is on sale for $100 off. That's 22% this week. So, if you want a shitty 870 clone from Cabela's, I guess it's not a bad deal.
Yeah, you could put the money you're saving into 0.223 caliber bullets.
I hear those are for taking.
So his complaint here is that this shotgun is not one that would be turned on an unruly gaggle of geese, perchance. But then his next statement is, it strikes me these kind of weapons have limited use in a hunting or target shooting context. Well,
Like,
I agree that maybe it's not your first choice for a
don't-
gaggle of geese, but just totally.
Why wouldn't you use
firearm.
that shit for geese? Like, why the fuck not?
I mean,
All right.
I
That's a
wouldn't,
short
you're
barrel. I mean, it would work
neglecting
fine, but like, wouldn't be my first choice.
yeah, it wouldn't be mine.
Well, we
either.
would take the improved cylinder choke out of it, but it does take different chokes. Marty, you're missing the most important line in the entire letter from Dr. Daz.
Do you want me to read
These
it like
firearms
you want me to
are
read it
more
like an old
likely to-
man? I can read it like an old
Please.
man.
Honestly, it strikes me that these kinds of weapons have limited use in a hunting or target shooting context, and are more likely to appeal primarily to testosterone imbalanced alpha males who feel the need to make an impression. I thought we were better than this.
Better than what? Better than fucking what? Fuck you, get out of my helicopter. If some idiot wants to own one of these gay-looking shotguns, I'm using gay in a derogatory sense in case that was not abundantly clear, these things look stupid. To do, or if you want a Beretta CX4 to play with 9mm ammo on the cheap at the range, or for some god-awful reason you decided to buy a DPMS Oracle because you didn't know what an AR was and you bought that instead, like, go nuts. Have fun. They're probably not terrible firearms. Maybe the Polaris tactical shotgun is terrible, but
shotgun's
that's
pretty
objective.
terrible.
Well, I think after you buy these shitty ass guns and these shitty ass clones, you should go get them fixed up and refurbished and detailed by Canadian Gun Works.
They do a great job with pink Cerakote.
Yeah, and then you could sell them on gun nuts on the E for double what you paid for to other unsuspecting people.
Oh.
I think it's entirely reasonable to surmise that if you were the testosterone imbalanced alpha male tactical gun Chad, you would buy better firearms and things that they have at Cabela's. But I suppose if you're the virgin doctor, then these are very scary.
Yeah, this is a guy
Right.
hangs around PEI. He's been eating potatoes for about 70 years. Very low
I
T.
mean, the guy
fatty liver.
The guy probably only fires rimfire. Let's be honest.
Drinks municipal tap water, baby.
Like, I mean, if 223 is a high power round, the guy's shooting rimfire,
Oh yeah.
and probably not
This
even
guy doesn't
20,
shoot.
probably not
This guy
even 22 rimfire because that's too big.
Oh no, this guy shoots something at rims, but it has
Yeah.
nothing to do with firearms.
Yeah, this guy has a fire
Everything
in his
to do
rim,
with-
that's for sure.
Faggotry.
I feel like we've sufficiently flogged that dead horse. Gavin, where can everyone find you on the internet?
I guess when we're not being arrested for a number of things that probably happened this evening, you can find me on Instagram at urbex_GTA.
Freddie, where can everybody find the show?
Visit us at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com, Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast, or submit feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com.
Excellent. Those are all good options. Matt, where can everybody find you on the internet?
Liberty Death Podcast, Facebook.com/Liberty Death Podcast. We have a website at some point. We've been on a slight hiatus, but we are still going to be there.
It's
Check
not
us
in
out.
English.
Instagram, iTunes and what's that shit on Android? Podcast Republic. Yeah, we're all over the place. So check us out when you get a chance. We're a little bit edgier and probably on more lists. But it is what it is.
Tim, where can
After
everybody
tonight,
find
I'm not
you?
sure though. So
You can find me at timsgoodtshirts.ca or facebook.com/timsgoodtshirts.
They're quite good. As always, my name is Andrew. You can find me at Ragnarok Tactical. Buy some bandages or other stuff. I have lots of things for first aid. I can also get other things if you don't like first aid.
But seriously, you should
I have
buy
to
some
apologize to
bandages.
Radial Tech. Yeah, seriously, buy some bandages. Buy a tourniquet. If you don't have a tourniquet,
You
Yeah,
can
buy a
die.
tourniquet.
Not getting injured is not a plan.
yeah, you'll get shot in the leg and you'll be like, "Damn, I didn't buy one of Andrew's tourniquets." Now I'm
You're
fucked.
gonna You're
Now
gonna
I'm
find
bleeding out.
a family of sleepy rabbits bleeding, and you're gonna want a tourniquet.
Yeah.
I have to apologize to Rod Giltack. I'm afraid we could not fit him into the show tonight. We had a very full panel. And for all of our listeners in podcast land, I would like to remind you that you are the true North, strong and free.